I just want to make this video because I feel like this is a really important thing happening in the video game. Obviously, they're buffing blood decay. If you guys haven't seen it, my thoughts on that quickly are that's great, but the spec seems to be like far more than another 8% damage behind. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but that first 8% damage buff did almost nothing. I heard that there's now some interaction that's going to make it even more than just 8% of our, because it's only abilities damage, but it has something to do with dancing rune weapon. I don't understand any of that kind of stuff, but apparently it is going to be a little bit more sizable this time around somehow. But this is why I'm making the video here. Well, first of all, also ghouls summoned by Raised Dead now inherit 85% of Death Knight's health. I think this is a PvP thing. Death Coil healing increased by 75%. I think this is people healing the ghoul. I certainly can't imagine ever using Death Coiling for healing anything other than you using the spell period. I can't imagine using. So I don't think that's the thing, but maybe you guys know more about it. And just quickly before, well, no, you know what? Let's just read this first because this is the real reason we're making the video, and I have some bit of a rant to go on here. We are lowering the effectiveness of all primordial stones that deal damage by 40% to increase gearing options for players. We are compensating specific specializations that are commonly using the Onyx Amulet Ring for this damage loss. Alongside this, we are reducing the effectiveness of damage to healing spells to maintain similar healing outputs. This will result on an overall increase in healer damage in content where the Onyx Amulet is not utilized, but we feel there is room for healer damage to increase in this space without overly incentivizing offensive play. Just super bizarre thing to even say. It really doesn't even make sense to me. They basically are, to me, when I read this, this is what I hear. We added this item that should never have been in the game in the first place. It makes no sense. We should never have added this in the first place. Obviously, all you guys care about is min-maxing your DPS at the cost of every other part of your character. So we should never have put this in the game. And now that we realize that, somehow it took us 5 months to do that. Now that we realize that, we're actually just going to buff healer damage because we've seen that healer damage is like almost mandatory to succeed in keys, especially because there's such imbalance with some of the specs and damage-wise. Yeah, so instead of, just addressing this and trying to retune things, we're just going to buff DPS of healers. And then we're going to do it in the dumbest way possible where we give Restoration Druid a 25% damage buff. It's like, what's going on here? I mean, I don't really understand. A 25% damage buff. So, like, this is the conversation that got brought up to me, was that, first of all, the ring is still going to be used. Like, people were saying that even with a 40% decrease to the ring, it will still be better than some specs, like some other options. But I would say, like, you should always aim to craft your ring. Like, that is such a good item to have best stats on. So I don't, this whole thing never mattered. I'm never going to choose pure offense over everything else. So I never use this thing. So I'm just getting a flat 8% damage buff. Thank you. But people were saying that that buff plus the 40% nerf to the ring will still be a net increase for blood. And I don't know if that's true. I'm just heard what people are saying. But other people have then chimed in saying like, oh, it'll definitely be true for my spec, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know what the truth of this is. But this is really dumb. Like, all of this is just so stupid in my eyes. They'd made the same mistake many times over the years. They did the same thing with Legion legendaries, where they made legendaries have a component of pure offense, and then some have no offense. And then they're surprised when everybody uses the pure offense ones and never considers changing for the rest of the expansion. Now, that was a system that was designed to be kept for the rest of the expansion. This one obviously isn't, so it makes more sense that they're more interested in changing it. But it's just, what did you think was going to happen? Like, they even said at one point, like, oh, no, this ring will not be used after this season. It's not going to be best in slot moving forward. It's like, bro, like, I don't know if they even it. To me, it sounds like somebody who just joined the company and never looked at the game's history of development of items ever before. Because when I saw this, I was like, what the hell is this? Why would you make it a ring? It has nothing in competition. There's not a single item in the game out there that can compete with it. I guess there's that ring from the first raid, which people are still going on about. But that's it. There's no other ring in the game that does damage. It's so stupid. People are going to see this, and even if it's not And this is what my argument has been the whole time. You're losing secondary stats. There's no secondary stats on the item, right? Well, those matter. Like, those do something for your character. So you better be damn sure that what you're getting from this ring is better than those. And for a while, obviously it was, if all you're worried about is damage. But now we're getting to a point, especially season 2 underway, that that's becoming less and less true. And so instead, what they're basically saying is, like, when they say something like, what is exactly the words here? I don't want to misquote it. To increase gearing options for players. That is tongue in cheek for saying, like, well, you guys are too stupid to realize that you're using a ring with no secondary stats on it, so we don't want you to use this ring at all anymore. Well, then remove the fucking ring. Like, what? Why is it still in the game? Like, I don't. This is not going to change that, dude. There are people that are so focused on what details tells them is going on, they're not going to care that it got nerfed because their ring does 0 damage. It doesn't show up on details. And this is the crux of the problem. This is what I've been talking about since the ring came out. There's a fraction of the community out there that think their ring does 0 damage for them. Like, I've had this conversation in my stream chat with people that I would hope have heard this conversation in multiple layers before and aren't going to fall for this, but they still fall for it. They're like, look, the ring did 60% of my damage. It's like, but you don't have another ring on. You don't have something to compare it to. You can't take it off and then compare it to nothing because the stats that you gain from that ring don't show up in the details chart. Oh my God. So it's really crazy to me. This is a huge, 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 huge error from Blizzard to ever add something like this. I have no idea why they thought this was a good idea. And the fact that they're handling it this way. And so the second part of this factor here is that they're buffing pretty much like what I can tell, I didn't like look at all of these things, but like pretty much every tank and healer is getting a buff, right? I mean, like, first of all, I do not think Vengeance, like, I'm not sure what the goal is here because people are telling me that 8% ability damage is not what the ring is doing for them. So why give us 8%? What's the goal here? It's like they want it to still be used, right? That's what it sounds like. It's like it's not there to completely replace the ring. They're not removing the ring. It's like, well, yay, you want to still use the ring, go for it. But we nerfed it now. It's like, well, that doesn't do anything. That's pointless. I just don't really get it. The whole thing makes no sense to me, but it makes even less sense that they're still buffing specs that are overpowered as shit. Like, from what I've seen with Vengeance, there's no way that the ring is going to contribute. Like, it's just not happening. You know what I mean? The spec does not need 4% more damage because you nerfed the ring. And I get it, they're giving every spec something, but you see Resto Druid, and I'm gonna tell you right now, dude, Resto Druid's issue is not its actual damage output. They can do good damage, and even though the ring is, I would say, like, for the one thing about the ring, it's like healers, yeah, just go ahead and use that because so much of the healing is overhealing anyway. Like, the stats, I guess maybe not having versatility might hurt, but it's like you don't really need the stats for actual healing in this game. That's just not really how healing works, I find. Again, I'm not playing a healer, so maybe I'm wrong, but like I really think that just putting that thing on is a slam dunk for them. But now nerfing it and then buffing Resto by 25% basically just tells you that they're like seeing Resto do 0 DPS, and that's what I see all the time. But you look at that compared to other specs, like where's Holy Paladin? Holy Paladin is here, and there's a bunch of changes. Oh yeah, so only 10%. Like, I just don't, I don't really see it. I'm not really understanding what's happening here. Obviously, for me, like, I'm just getting a straight buff. So this completely doesn't even matter to me. I've never used the ring. I used the ring 1 week total. And it's just kind of strange how they handled it all. Do I think Resto Druid needs more damage than Holy Pally? Absolutely not. Like, not even fucking close. Like, the problem with Resto Druid is people don't use the spells. Like, I literally watch people do 0 DPS on. Like, this happens a lot. Like, I get it. We play with a lot of Resto Druids, so the likelihood of seeing it is also higher. But, like, there's been, like, 5 or 6 keys this season already where these Resto Druids are doing, like, they're doing, like, single-digit DPS at the end of a key. It's insane. And this has been going on since Shadowlands forever. Even back in BFA, when BFA, like, Resto Druid was the meta. Like, it was #1 by a large margin. You know what I mean? I said the same thing in BFA. I have videos on it in BFA too. I don't know what it is about the spec, but you tell me that Holy Pally's damage is only 10%, and that the ring is needing a nerf still, and they're only getting 10%, and then Blood DK is only 8%. It's like, no, these are the outliers, dude. Like, this is the problem here. You have healers with massively disproportionate amount of DPS able to be done. Like, you're telling me Holy Priest and Holy Paladin get the same buff? It doesn't even make sense. You know what I mean? And Discipline too. Like, I don't. These things are not the same. And what's rest? Yeah, Resto Shaman's also getting 10%. What is this? I have no idea, but I wanted to make a video on it. I want to hear your guys' thoughts, especially from other tanks, like other non-Blood DK players, other healers. What do you think about this? Do you find that you're still going to use the ring? Do you find that the buff that you're getting for your spec is enough to make you care? Like, because again, I've never used the ring, so I don't know how I feel about the ring now, because I never cared about it in the first place. But if you were using it throughout this season, are you going to stop using it? Do you feel like this is a fair trade? Where is it going to play out in your head? Thank you for watching. We will see you guys in the next one.